So we have another day and some more less than ideal news around CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077. Just recently, the company's president made what I would describe as questionable statements about the current status of the game and how it is perhaps at a satisfactory level in regards to their view of it. This, coupled with a couple of other actions by CDPR as of late, has definitely brought them quite a bit of additional criticism. But also, what is probably a lot bigger news is those lawsuits are happening. You probably heard about them late last year, a bit earlier this year, and well, they're kicking off in just the next couple of weeks or perhaps even days. So first, let's look at some of these quotes from the president, because they're definitely one of the biggest stories, and I feel like it's good to actually get the context because very few other articles actually gave any context. So CD Projekt Red is one of the bigger companies on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, that being the stock exchange in Poland. And from June 22nd to June 24th, there was the Warsaw Stock Exchange Innovation Day. This basically being a conference where you could ask some of the companies who are listed on the stock exchange what they're doing, their future plans, innovations, things like that. And of course, CDPR was there, specifically the president of CDPR, and he did say some stuff about Cyberpunk 2077 as well as the company overall. You may have seen some people reporting on this. Again, there's quite a few articles, very few actually getting the full context. I actually dug down the rabbit hole and found the original article. I think it was literally like 6 articles sourcing one another, and none of them decided to just, hey, maybe I should check out the original one. I'll have a link to this down below, but here are some of the important quotes. They are translated from Polish though, so do keep that in mind. We are constantly working on new patches. Words in parentheses here, it's just an addition by the article writer to give context. The patches so far have been focused on improving the stability of the game. We have already achieved a satisfactory level in this respect. We have also worked on the overall performance. We are also quite satisfied with that. Of course, we also fixed bugs, glitches, and we will continue to do this. Over time, we will be introducing fixes to the general systems that players are paying attention to. Then he goes on to say how currently the studio employs 600 people as far as people actually working on game production. There's 100 or so people on Gwent, 50 people on The Witcher Monster Slayer, as well as many others still working on Cyberpunk patches, and there are also teams that to some extent work on things that have not been announced yet as part of the franchises we have. I'll touch more on that in a moment. They also go on to mention some partial sales data since being relisted onto the PlayStation Store, but they're not going to be publishing this partial data. Perhaps we'll hear about what kind of uptick in sales there was or wasn't in a later conference call as far as the earnings go. But of course, the big quote here is that one about the game being at a satisfactory level, where he says, improving the stability of the game, we have already achieved a satisfactory level in this respect, as well as how they are quite satisfied with the overall performance of the game. And yeah, he really said that. I was actually kind of uncertain. Like, I looked up the word in Polish and I translated it just individually, that one word, into English, and it does really mean satisfactory. I was wondering if this was somehow taken out of context, so I tried to look at other No, it really seems like this is what he said. And if you're scratching your head, not understanding why this is kind of a perplexing statement to be made, it's because if you actually look at the game specifically on last gen consoles, but even if you look at it on PC, you have to kind of ask yourself, are they really satisfied with this product as it currently exists? Unless the president is actually this disconnected from the audience and also the reality of the game's current status, I just don't understand why he would have said this. The most recent update to the game was definitely a nice step in the right direction. It was smaller than people were expecting, especially with that 7-week development time, or at least a 7-week gap in between 2 updates, and it did definitely help FPS on consoles. It is now sticking to 30 FPS more often and frequently. This coming at a massive cost of, you know, Night City being basically a ghost town. As you could kind of see in the background, there's barely any other cars, barely any pedestrians, and if you drive into the wrong area, you will immediately drop to 25 or so FPS and kind of stick there, or actually drop even a bit lower as you go deeper. I didn't realize this was satisfactory. I mean, by my metric, I would not consider this a satisfactory level, and I mean, this is just a brief amount of testing by me. If you actually went in depth, you could uncover a lot more reasons why this isn't satisfactory. Like, I don't know, maybe the fact that we're about to hit 7 months since release and some cybernetic implants as well as some mods for armors/weapons don't work. Like, you apply them and they do nothing. Seems like that might be one of those things that might be needed to be fixed before you hit a satisfactory level, at least in my eyes. I guess it varies from person to person. And really, the reason I find this to be so surprising is CDPR has really kind of screwed themselves, just shot themselves in the foot in the past with bad quotes given during earnings calls. call. And although this isn't an earnings call, it just seems like such a bad quote to have out there. The game is literally a giant meme right now for being so buggy. It gets a ton of backlash across the board. And although over the past 7 months, they have made quite a bit of progress towards improving this, as it exists right now, the game is in the best state it has ever been in. It still has a ways to go before it's probably in the most ideal state it can be in, but hey, they're making progress. They're committed to this game. It doesn't seem like they're abandoning it. But just saying it's at a satisfactory level is such a bad thing, unless they really think that, which is kind of concerning considering all the other non-bug issues, like the whole police system not working, a ton of perks that technically work but are just utterly stupid. Like, even as a bug for experience, Cyberpunk 2077 still definitely needs some patches and updates to tweak some things to get it to a more ideal or kind of best version of itself. But then on one hand, I'm wondering if this is perhaps just a reflection of how the company or maybe the upper management is perceiving things currently. That last patch that took 7 weeks was pretty light overall, especially compared to the one that took 8 weeks and had a mountain of changes added to the game. By comparison, patch 1.23 really wasn't that impressive, and a lot of people were definitely disappointed with that. Even further, the company just posted up a list of top reported issues. I actually loved this. It almost acts as like a bug tracker of things that are on their radar they're going to be fixing. And it's a great form of communication and transparency between CDPR and the community, except the list only has 3 bugs. Like, did a PR person not see this and be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't post a list of only 3 bugs when the game is a giant meme right now for being so buggy? Like, you could just throw some extra stuff on there. The game doesn't just have 3 bugs, if you didn't realize that. There are definitely more than 3 top issues, and they are been reported. It's not like these are secret issues nobody knows about. That list was posted 5 days ago and has received no updates since then. So overall, I just find this quote and some of the actions as of late to be pretty confusing. On one side, I wonder if this is maybe just something that we're hoping sticks to investors. It was an investor conference. Maybe they're trying to make things sound good, but I just don't understand why you would say this. There are so many other things you could say that would be better. Like, the game has already improved a ton. It just went back on the PlayStation Store. It's a big milestone, especially from a financial perspective. But acknowledging the fact that they still have a ton of updates on the way, they'll continue to improve it, start improving some of the features and fundamental aspects of the game, not only bug fixing. Seems like something like that would have gone over a lot better. Although on a more positive note, it also does seem like going forward, we may in fact actually see some more feature improvements or something. As CDPR did say, over time we'll be introducing fixes to the general systems that players are paying attention to. This is definitely something a lot of people have been wanting and waiting for. I think most people thought it would have been addressed before the 7-month mark with the game, but either way, I'm definitely pretty excited to see where they go with this. Obviously, the police seems like the biggest and most obvious one. It's been one of the aspects of the game to get the most criticism. Also, some of the perks, like that throwing knife perk where you have to literally throw away your knife to use it. It's just kind of a weird thing to have in the game that could be kind of cool really easily. And you also have to wonder what's going on with these free DLCs. There's a lot of mystery around them. As I've said like several times in this video, Cyberpunk is about to turn 7 months old. At this point in The Witcher 3's life cycle, when The Witcher 3 turned 7, all of the free DLCs already were released, and one of the expansions was just released for the game. Conversely with Cyberpunk now, as we are over halfway done with 2021, we don't know anything about the free DLCs as far as a release date, as far as what they're actually adding, and they just keep restating that they will be free and coming out in 2021. In a couple of weeks now, WitcherCon is happening, although it is very focused on both the Witcher game as well as the Witcher TV show on Netflix. It seems like this could be one of the obvious events where we hear more, whether it be about update plans, some of the features being improved, or perhaps just the DLCs that are on the way. And I do want to reiterate here, the DLCs are free. The expansions are the paid things. Free DLCs are just adding free content that you could download as an extra. Although, of course, one of the other big stories happening right now with CDPR that is going to get much bigger in the coming weeks is this lawsuit. You probably remember how late in 2020 and early 2021, there was 4 lawsuits filed against CDPR by their investors. That's an important part. I think a lot of people forget. It's not like this is from consumers or people that bought the game, but people invested in the company that owned the stock, where basically they said that they were misled regarding the state and playability of Cyberpunk 2077 on last-gen consoles. So the statement CDPR made about Cyberpunk on the PS4 and Xbox One made the investors think that things were in a better state than they were in reality. The whole reason there was these 4 lawsuits is they're basically going to be consolidated into a singular lawsuit. It's different firms trying to get the class action money, but eventually the judge actually decides on one or several to to represent the plaintiffs. During this event, it was also stated that the company expects the final version of the class action in the US will go to court at the turn of June and July, so literally in the next couple of days. And the president saying, "We expect that then we can know the amount of the claims. We do not know it now." It seems like this around the actual dollar amount, but that actually didn't happen. As just earlier today, CDPR updated us on their investor website saying it has received a copy of the statement of claims filed against the company and members of its management board by a law firm. If you don't remember, the lawsuit is not only against CDPR, but named individual members of the company, and they do clarify how the statement is materially consistent with previously filed unconsolidated lawsuits which concern the matter, and likewise, it does not specify the amount of damages sought. So in other words, it doesn't really seem like CDPR knows as of right now how much they are actually getting sued for in total. I think this actually has the potential to be big news. We'll see what happens. It could just end up getting settled, but we've seen many high-profile lawsuits reveal a lot about the people involved, specifically this time CDPR. As evidence is submitted and does become public record, people gain access to that, and we saw this with the Apple v. Epic lawsuit as of late. Actual emails from CEOs to CEOs, some of the policies being held by the company, some of their plans going forward. So we could be getting a lot of news in literally just the next couple of days, but likely over the next couple of weeks. But of course, also the fact that CDPR could lose this and kind of have a judge decide that they actually were misleading to investors and by proxy somewhat consumers, because a lot of those quotes on some of those earnings calls were highly publicized about the status of the game on last-gen consoles, and it'll be interesting to see how that influences just some of the other lawsuits or user perception overall. With that said, that's a good update of some of the things happening right now. You might be on the cusp of quite a bit of additional news around this game. Hopefully there's another update at some point. There's been no news or mumblings about that at all. Both WitcherCon as well as the lawsuit kicking off, I have to imagine we'll be hearing something in the next couple of weeks. With that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you guys found this one informative, but until next time, I hope to see you all later.